Welcome to Scream Queens. I'm your host for the following documentary, DebraS.Hayes. Whereas previous studies in scary movie matriarchs allowed men to speak about the fabulous females of fear, the following frightful analysis is brought to you solely by the ladies of laceration, the Scream Queens themselves. That's right, this is about us, the glamour girls of gore. Although that in itself raises questions. Indeed. Are we to believe that every shock cinema siren needs to be beautiful? Yep, that's the dichotomy.
Really, when I think of Scream Queen, I think of Brink Stevens, Michelle Bauer, and Linnea Quigley. And those are the three women that really kind of coined the term back in the day, who made their actual living being repeatedly nude and stabbed and screaming in various horror films.
I started making movies in the early 1980s. And in the mid-'80s, we had the whole home video revolution, where suddenly there was this whole new art form, and people were churning out direct-to-video movies. So having a very blue-collar, working-class attitude about it, I was just in every film that I got offered. And it built up my body of work, where pretty soon somebody somewhere coined the name Scream Queen. I don't know if it was strictly related to the 80s. Personally, I think Vampira was a Scream Queen. Fay Wray was certainly probably the original Scream Queen. And it was a title that was bestowed at first to myself, Linnea Quigley, and Michelle Bauer.
The first time I heard myself being labeled as a Scream Queen, I believe, gosh, I think it had to go with the magazine. I don't really recollect a specific time. I know we had gone on to the Jenny Jones show, and one girl was handing off the crown to another queen, and I thought, this is nonsense. Then they had the trading cards, and I think that's when it did come about, because it became almost a monopoly that you had the trading cards and the coffee cups and the jackets and everything signed by you, and the magazine and the layouts.
The term Scream Queen means to me girls that have done a lot of movies where there's been monsters or zombies or demons, and they've done a lot of films where they've been running and falling and being attacked by them and, you know, screaming.
At the time, there was a whole array of low-budget independent studios that made horror films, like Fred Olen Ray's group, David Dakota, Charlie Band with Empire, and then Full Moon. So those were the fun jobs. You know, I did some mainstream work. I was in Body Double, I worked a week on that. I was in Spinal Tap, I worked a week on that. And those were pretty fun, but nothing beats a horror movie. My goodness, I mean, it's just, it defies the imagination, the things that you're called upon to do. You know, you're in some scanty slave girl costume and hauled off by killer robots and put on a dissecting table and hunted by a madman. So I have to say that it's really been a lot of fun. My career has been a total hoot.
Who's there? Oh, God damn it! Hey, calm down.
As Michelle Bauer, Linnea Quigley, and myself began to emerge as the original Scream Queens, we were all watching each other's backs and helping each other. We were all friends, and we'd go shopping together and things. So if, like, Fred Olen Ray was doing a movie, Linnea would tell me about it. I did a couple of shoots for Playboy, like Girls of Rock and Roll and Flash Dancers, that I told her about and got her in that. So pretty much we were finding jobs for each other. There was a lot of camaraderie there.
We were all working very hard for very little money, and it was just a lot of fun.
Later on, every woman who had appeared in the pages of Femme Fatale magazine or Scream Queens Illustrated said, hey, I'm a Scream Queen. And it kind of diluted the definition. But now I feel like it's a real honor, and it's certainly nice to be the queen of something.
Well, that's a start.
Could you just slow down, please? There's a whole weekend ahead of us. Let me get to know you again.
Okay. There's only so many cold showers I can take.
So, who are the Scream Queen icons? I can start with my personal favorites. Sybil Danning, Barbara Steele, Elvira, Karen Black, Linnea Quigley, Brinke Stevens, Michelle Bauer, Ingrid Pitt, Barbara Crampton, Dee Wallace, Lisa Wilcox. These are all incredibly strong women. All women who, when they started their career, they didn't even think about the term Scream Queen. They just went into the job and did the best they could. That's what makes them special, and that's what makes them an icon. They've all etched out beautiful careers for themselves. So let's hear what they have to say about this.
The term Scream Queen is something that's evolved and really didn't exist when we made Friday the 13th. So now that I've kind of been pegged as a Scream Queen, it's sort of a nice little umbrella of very talented women who have really made a special genre their own. And I'm proud to be a member.
Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees.
I actually never think of myself as a Scream Queen because I really didn't scream a lot. I think a Scream Queen, and my definition is like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where she's like screaming through the whole movie and he's chasing her with a chainsaw. So I think that's a Scream Queen. Whereas the films that I've done, I mean, I think I screamed once in Shivers. I didn't scream at all in The Crazies, and I was mute in I Drink Your Blood. So that term I don't think applied to me from my work in the 70s. However, in the last few years, I have done a few films now where I have been screaming a lot. So, so now I guess, you know, I could be called that.
Well, I have never screamed. No, I've never screamed in a horror movie. I am a screen queen. I've played many queens on screen, and that's what I really like playing. Because for me, a scream queen is someone that screams and then gets killed. And that's why I've turned down a lot of horror movies. But I really love The Howling 2, because in The Howling 2, I'm the one doing the killing. Yes, take it, I mean, I do get killed, but being killed while killing Christopher Lee is not a bad way to go. And so, for me, Screen Queen it is.
I never thought in my life that I would be referred to as a Scream Queen, but it's not me who's making that up. I've read it. I saw it for what it was, the Scream Queen, in other words, the diva of the screams. But perhaps these days there is a sexual connotation to it, which certainly has no reason for being in those films.
I've never really thought of myself as a Scream Queen, really. But I did scream a lot, that's true. I did run around and I did scream a lot, so Scream Queen, that's fine by me.
A few years ago, I was asked to be on the cover of Femme Fatale, 10-year anniversary issue, and they said, first because I was a scream queen, and I'd never been called that before. And I was like, and I'm like, okay, yes, I guess I am a scream queen.
I was kind of categorized as a scream queen, and I don't really think of myself as a scream queen. I mean, not that I wouldn't like to be, but you know, I really don't do what I think scream queens do, which is scream for one thing. I can't scream. People are always asking me, would you scream for me? I can't. I don't have a scream. It's really weird. So that part of it's totally out.
When I got Friday the 13th, I hadn't seen any Friday the 13th movies. So I thought, I better find out what this is about. Because they told me right up front in the auditions that this is Friday the 13th. So I went to see part 4 because I knew Kimberly Beck, and it was fascinating. She was great in it, and it was fascinating to see if you've never seen a Friday the 13th movie. And I said, oh my God, this is what I have to do. This is what this is about.
Hard to believe, 30 years ago, I starred in my very first feature film, Splatter University. Now, the first thing that I didn't understand was that I thought we were making a major feature film. I didn't think it was a horror film. I didn't approach it that way. I was a stage actress. I'd worked on Broadway. I danced on Broadway. And I took this very seriously. So you may not notice it, but I was acting my heart out. This was a character who just moved into a place where there had been another teacher murdered, and I was out there doing my best. Now, where I went wrong was after I found my 3rd or 4th dead body, I should have left. And that's the secret to being a scream queen, is that you suspend your disbelief.
The original Night of the Living Dead, of course, the character of Barbara was the ultimate victim. And she just went into catatonia and died a horrible death. When I heard that they were redoing Night of the Living Dead and would I audition for Barbara, my friend Tom Savini was going to be directing it, I just couldn't understand why George would remake that movie. It was so scary and perfect in that rough, gritty black and white. But then I read the script and he had completely renovated the character of Barbara to become someone who had a little bit of chutzpah, and I loved it. I couldn't wait to do it. Again, I think that I wasn't very glamorous or beautiful or anything like that. In fact, I'm kind of nerdy to start with, and then I just end up dirty and sweaty. But at least I could figure out how to shoot a zombie in the head, you know.
When I think of Scream Queen, I think of like Linnea Quigley, Tiffany Shepis, Brink Stevens. I don't really classify myself as a scream queen. I'm kind of too late in the game for that.
I love like Ingrid Pitt. I mean, she was a big, you know, influence on me. I thought she was so cool and sexy. And she usually played kind of the evil role, you know. She usually ended up getting offed also, but she wasn't a victim. So I loved her, and I thought, oh, this was cool. I mean, I remember seeing her when I was so young and just go, oh my God, she was sexy and ballsy, and loved that.
Shelley Duvall in The Shining. I mean, you know, she's got the ultimate scared face when the axe comes through the door. Mother and daughter acts, Jamie Lee Curtis and Janet Leigh. I mean, Janet Leigh screaming in the shower. It's that final scream, isn't it? The ultimate scream queen. You need to be able to let out that horrible moment just before you die. I mean, maybe they don't die. Not every time a scream queen dies, but a lot of the time it's that horrible blood-curdling scream, which is like, this is my last breath on earth. So yeah, Janet Leigh and Jamie Lee Curtis, Psycho and Halloween, they're the ultimate scream queens.
And certainly Heather. I mean, I was a huge fan of Nightmare before I even did Nightmare on Elm Street, and Heather Langenkamp. I mean, she's this beautiful, looked like Brooke Shields, you know, just this beautiful woman, and she's fighting for her life. And yeah, it definitely made an impression, for sure.
And yeah, Sigourney Weaver, of course, who doesn't? I mean, she's like, fierce, awesome chick, right? I mean, every woman looks up to that. But Yeah, I looked at the character roles, like the weird, creepy people. Those were the people that I admired. I liked Elvira a lot growing up.
I thought Linnea Quigley was brilliant. I mean, I thought, who has more balls than Linnea Quigley, man? And doing that strip scene in that graveyard, I mean, I'll never get over that. And I don't think a lot of people will.
The girls that I thought were real strong, even though they weren't Scream Queens, were Linda Hamilton in Terminator, Sigourney Weaver in Aliens, even though she really didn't do any screaming. Let me think. Jamie Lee Curtis, of course. She's an icon for Scream Queens. And Fay Wray, even though I know she did not want to be called a Scream Queen, I still thought Fay Wray was a great one.
Definitely Jamie Lee Curtis from Halloween. I would say Ginny from Part 2, Amy Steele. And the list is growing, you know, as time goes on. But definitely we were the originals, weren't we?
To be a Scream Queen, you've got to have a big set of lungs. But what is the secret of a good scream? That moment when a madman or a mad woman has you by the throat. The blade of the knife or the claw of the ghoul is coming closer. Your life is flashing past your eyes, and you just need to let out a burst of vocal violence.
The secret of a great scream is being able to go from the diaphragm and just really let one out. Just really belt it out and horrify everyone.
I would do it for you, but it would blow out your sound. Yeah, it truly is. You just go from the gut and let it wail.
It just is an organic thing. You're in the moment as an actor. You're going through the most horrendous thing of your life, obviously, so you're going to scream. And I believe that your scream tells the story just in the scream. You can portray a whole litany of things in your scream.
I used to scream at everything. If I see a spider, I'm going to scream. If I see, you know, something creepy, I scream. If you open the door and see a dead body, guess what you're going to do? So I didn't really have to practice much.
A good scream and pure terror is just, yeah, be in that moment. Be in that moment. Someone is going to harm you, and you need to let anyone who's within earshot hear you. And that's where you get the shrill and the high pitch and from your gut.
I think it's got to come from a really deep, deep, deep place. That high-pitched throat thing doesn't seem real to me. Even though when I scream in real life, I scream like a bitch. Like my real scream when I'm really scared, and I'm scared of lots of things. I'm actually kind of a baby about a lot of that stuff, and you would think like from doing these movies that I would be this like tough girl badass. I'm so not. I mean, I'm literally like, I sleep with a hall light on. I'm the girl that's scared of the dark. And that could be because I did these movies when I was little and there were people trying to kill me. Could have something to do with it. So my screams on film versus my screams in real life are two totally different things. So I think a good scream comes from way deep down inside.
I actually do remember the first time I screamed. And it was so girly and high-pitched. I was really shocked, and I think it was on Colour of Night, and I'd never screamed on film before. I don't think I'd ever screamed, apart from seeing spiders in the bath. And I remember thinking, oh, it's a really high-pitched girly scream. It was quite shocking, I remember that. And even now when I do it, it's quite shocking. It's not just not something you do. You just don't do it in real life.
I've done some video games where I always play a Russian villain who talks like this, or an abused Russian civilian. Actually, my last job was for Lafayette video game. I don't know if it's been released yet or not. They said it was the best Scream ever. It was in the studio, but their faces were very strange. They were like, wow, that was a long scream. I'm like, I can do it again. Like, no, it's okay. You're good, you're good.
And as loud as possible. Police should come. That's happened to me 3 times.
There was also something extraordinarily liberating in screaming. I mean, they've now made various therapy techniques out of it. You're supposed to go out into the forest and scream in certain situations that you can't resolve otherwise. And it is extraordinarily freeing. So I think the more I screamed, the better I felt.
I find screaming terribly therapeutic. So I just do it, you know, yeah.
Let me tell you something, screaming takes so much energy. I mean, it's, you don't do that when you're scared, do you? I mean, you only do that if you're if you jump. If you jump for real, then you scream. But I don't think you scream over and over and over. I think guys just like to watch you scream because it's very connected to, you know, having a screaming orgasm.
The very first time I ever screamed was in my first movie, Slumber Party Massacre. So they took me out to the parking lot of this high school where we were shooting, the sound man and I just screamed over and over for about 45 minutes into the microphone until he felt we had the perfect scream. It had to kind of convey what was happening to me because you don't actually see my death on camera. So my scream had to convey that I was dying horribly. And I'm really amazed that nobody called the police, but you know, it's Los Angeles, hey, I guess that happens all the time. So a good scream has to be loud and it should sustain and taper off nicely and so on. It just seems kind of silly to, at one point I was known as the best scream in Hollywood and I actually dubbed screams for other people. So that's my life.
I've got a few screams left in me, but not many because I spent a week screaming in the freezing cold and my voice box just packed in. It was horrible. I lost my scream.
The secret to staying beautiful when you're under the duress of almost being killed by the crazy madman, or covered in blood, or slime, or sweat, or God knows what else in a horror movie, is simply working from the inside out. You have to remember that you're still on camera, and no matter what the conditions are, whether it's freezing, whether it's hot, whether you're absolutely uncomfortable, whether you're on your 20th hour of shooting, you still have to want to be there and have to be there. And that's what makes a great performance. And that's what helps the beauty just to shine through, is your sheer joy of just being there.
I don't think one ever stays looking good in a horror film, really. And almost the worse you look, the better it is, because it makes it so much more real. You know, with the circumstances that you've been through, you're not going to look bambox. You know, everything's going to be messy, your hair. I remember when I did a film called Captain Cronus, I'd go into the makeup room early in the morning, and he said, "Have you washed your hair?" I'd say, "No." "Good." He said, "Good, good. Don't wash it. Don't keep it for a week. Don't wash it." I said, "But it'll be," he said, "Don't wash it." So we didn't wash the hair, and then he'd just, you know, do smudges of, I don't know, whatever he put on it. So that was it, ready to go. That was the quickest makeup ever.
I don't know if there is such a secret. I think it depends on every person who's playing the character, but to me, scary is sexy. Is it weird? In a lot of ways. So I guess it's just a combination. Once you get in the wardrobe and the makeup and you're there with all the zombies, you sort of don't really have a choice. And you are scary and sexy at the same time.
Oh, I don't know. I never think about being hot when I'm being chased by a maniac. I'm mostly thinking, oh God, I'm being chased by a maniac. But I think your best bet is don't smear your makeup too much.
I learned, you know, if you're sexy, it's something that you don't have to play. It's just something that will come out with the dialogue, with the way you move your body. And sinister and scary, I mean, it's kind of sexy. So if you're scary and sinister and you're already kind of sexy, it all kind of comes together, hopefully.
You know, I got the title Scream Queen before I was sexy, so I'm just now kind of coming into that, where I'm noticing like the clothes they have me in. It's like, wow, I'm in the backwoods and I'm fighting the bad guy, but I've got this great low cut gray tight, you know, t-shirt, this little jacket that's just zipped right here. So I think that there's that. Listen, I'm a girl. Most of the people that come and see these movies are dudes. I totally get it. And I'm milking it too. Like, I'm right about that age right now where I only have a good 5 years left to kind of be that Scream Queen sexy girl. And then I have to wait till I can play the mom. So it's like I go from me to like Dee Wallace. So it's like I have this like big gap that I'm just dreading. And I thank God I look young, so hopefully I can maybe have more than 5 years. It's really up to the fans. But I think that there definitely has to be that. You know, I don't want to watch some dowdy, covered up girl. I just really on anything unless she's playing that girl. So there's you know, you kind of have to play into that a little bit too, and you know, fun for me.
I'm shocked that they consider me a sex symbol, really, because I was wet and I think very muddy and bloody, and my face was contorted screaming, so yeah, I don't know how it's attractive, but I'm glad they like me.
Let's talk about why you're really here. Nudity. You know you want to talk about it. You know that I've done it. You know that almost every woman in this documentary has done it. Why is nudity important? Because producers are convinced that it helps sell movies. And it does, if you don't have a very good script, you don't have a very good DP, or actors, or editor for that matter, then you need to fall back on something to sell the movie. When I started, I did quite a bit of nudity. I would say 50% of the jobs I took required nudity. That was because there was not a lot of jobs around. And if you are willing to do nudity, you have that sort of leg up, if you will, on the competition who will not do the nudity because you want to get in front of a camera. You want to start practicing your craft. Am I happy that I did it? No. Does it bother me? No. It's just, it was a means to an end. It wasn't because I wanted to. It was because I had to. I felt I had to. I didn't have a gun to my head. I wasn't exploited. I exploited myself. However, that's just the way it was then. Once you do nudity, you can't take it back. It lives forever on the internet, so make sure you want to. Make sure you know before you do it.
Come on, you chicken.
You're crazy.
Gonna go for a little swim?
Okay.
In my first major movie, Slumber Party, at the audition they made it clear that women would have to bare their breasts at least once, preferably twice. And I didn't have a problem with that because I'd occasionally gone to a nude beach in San Diego and I had a very relaxed attitude about nudity. But in order to, you know, gain an audience, those movies definitely expressed a lot of female pulchritude. I was told on several auditions that unless I got a breast job and a nose job, that I would never work in this town, and I didn't do either, and I've been in 140 movies, so I think I proved them wrong.
You need a formal invitation? Russell, party for two, right this way, please.
Taking my clothes off for being a scream queen was never an issue. I have always had a sense of freedom about my body that was always good. And in Chainsaw Hookers, when I had full frontal, and it was at the time, ooh, full frontal, boy, that's risque and very risky, but once he put on that Elvis song and I had the shower cap on and the time came and got the Hudson sprayer and the blood's coming and limbs are thrown at me, I'm thrown over my shoulder. It was just, you don't even think about it. The nudity was never an issue. Today may be a different problem, but at the time, no, it was actually a prerequisite. If you weren't going to do it, someone else was going to. It couldn't have been a problem, or you weren't going to work, basically.
There's been times like I've had a little bit of a problem with the nudity, like in Silent Night, Deadly Night. It was like a woman would always put on her top instead of her pants to run upstairs, but they had to, because of the antlers sticking out of my stomach, have me just with my bottoms on. You know, it was just kind of like a thing where I thought, well, a woman wouldn't do that. But I've never had real problem with the nudity or anything like that. I think, especially in the 80s and 90s, that was just expected of you.
I was never ever going to take my clothes off. In fact, in Nightmare 5, there is some nudity, but it's not me, it's a body double. I just never wanted to do it. I've been asked before Nightmare on Elm Street and after Nightmare on Elm Street, and I just was not, in a horror film, I just find it gratuitous. And I know it's in a lot of horror films, and that is totally fine, and I enjoy it, but I don't think it's necessary. I think that the genre of horror has a lot more to say than show, you know, naked bodies and blood. There are stories.
I never really wanted to do nudity, but when Lloyd approached me with sugar cookies, I turned them down at first because there was just too much nudity in it, and I really didn't want to become known for that. But he was such a good part, and I thought, you know, I get to do two people, and, you know, maybe this will be like a stepping stone, you know, to something else. So I agreed to do the nudity as long as they, you know, kept it somewhat, you know, visually tasteful, which they agreed to do. And I have always had a very strong technique as an actress, so the character was just, you know, nude. So that's just all I thought about. I mean, I was never embarrassed about it, you know, it was just part of who that person was.
I started as a go-go dancer, and that was when it was kind of, you know, fringy dresses and white go-go boots and, you know, all that, because it was the early 60s. And I ended up from there. By the time I was 17, I was a showgirl in Las Vegas at the Dunes Hotel. And yeah, I've always been playing kind of these sexy roles. It's funny, when I first got my my Elvira dress, I had a lot of times interviewers would ask me, you know, what do your parents think about you wearing this sexy dress? And I go, are you kidding? They're so glad I'm wearing clothes at all, that they're over the moon. They're thrilled. You know, it's like, I'd always been wearing that. And when I was acting, the roles I was getting was like hooker, showgirl, stripper. I think I'm the only woman alive who played a stripper on the TV show Happy Days. You know, I'm proud to say that. But yeah, if there were any of those roles, that's the roles I got, you know.
All I know was that my character is the only female character in the entire movie that doesn't need to disrobe herself. So I was pretty chuffed about that. I was, I suppose, a bit taken aback at the level of nudity. And I suppose a part of me feels, oh yeah, thank God it's not me. But I thought those actresses were wonderful, and it serves to serve the narrative. So I don't think that it was just gratuitous, because I think there was a point that they have to take their clothes off as honey traps to get the guys, you know, involved. So yeah.
Hollywood is definitely a sexist town, and it's really hard not to get pigeonholed, you know, as a Playboy's playmate into playing only nude parts, which I have done in the beginning of my career, but now it's like I almost turn down every offer like that. Because they call my agent and they say, oh, we found your headshot in top nudity file. And that's like the end of it for me. Like, okay, no, thank you. Though I'm not opposed to nudity in comedy, or if it's, you know, if it's a great part and this is just a part of the story. Though it's really easy just to kind of fall into those traps, and that's all what you'll be doing. Like, that's going to be your typecasting.
That is one thing I've never done. I've done some strange things in my time, but I've never done that, and I certainly don't intend to. Doubt I'd be asked anyway at my age.
It really has to be because the film warrants it, because the story warrants it. And I spent a lot of my career turning down, you know, The Lover Part 2, you know, Colour of Night Part 3, just tried very, very hard. But early on in my career, it was, that was, you know, The Lover kind of defined, and people weren't very imaginative, and, you know, and I was young, and very young, and sometimes hard to say no to things, and things, you know, I remember Jeanne Moreau said to me when we were doing The Lover, she said, I have no regrets, never have regrets. But, and I love that, and I think it's an ideal, but I think I do. If I had a daughter now, you know, I'd be horrified if she'd done half the things I'd done. I think there are some films where it just hasn't been strictly necessary, but people get carried away, and that's a part of it too. And until you kind of find your voice and your confidence and your standing, and you establish yourself a bit more, I think for me it was quite hard to just kind of stand up for myself and say no.
I have never disrobed in a film, and I don't really intend to, and it's never been a problem. But you know, I don't usually play the girl running up the stairs. I'm usually the girl chasing the girl running up the stairs. So it hasn't been a problem for me personally, and I think the body's a beautiful thing. Why not show it? I think if a girl is gonna do it, they should also be given the opportunity to show some other things besides their boobs, you know?
I wasn't aware of how I looked. Believe it or not, the blouse was wet, but I was so involved in what I was doing, I wasn't aware that you could see through it. But now in hindsight, when I think back, the director had said, I don't want you to wear any underwear or any shirt or anything underneath it. But again, you're so into the character and what's in front of you that you're not thinking about your appearance. I was more concerned with portraying Pam Roberts to the fullest, because they didn't give me a lot of character development. As you see on the film, there's very little, and there's even less on film. There's more in the script. But so I created a character on my own, really.
Part of doing a horror movie, there's boobs, blood, sex, it's erotic. And that's kind of what horror films have always been like, so you just embrace it.
I had one rule when I was acting, is that I didn't want to do nudity. I didn't want that to come around and do a porn film or a soft porn or something where my grandkids would be, ooh, mommy, what did you do? Grandma, what'd you do? But somehow I had no problem with violence. And I don't know, it's the same thing as the coding system. You know, you get an X-rated movie for sex, which is beautiful and gorgeous, but you can slash somebody to pieces, cut at their heart, and eat it, and it's only an R. So, is it misogynistic? Yeah, but join the program.
I know you're out there.
Well, I don't find those movies sexist. I think people who do have closed minds, you know, it's like saying, oh, don't do nudity. Wow. It's like, come on. Everybody's naked. Who cares? You know, what, you're not going to get another job because you're naked? I mean, look at me. I do everything. And I don't care. If you don't want to hire, you know, you go in for a meeting if they think, oh, she's done sexist things or she's done nudity. You know, what's the difference? You go in and you do a good job. That's all that matters. And I think people that, you know, are judgmental shouldn't go see those films, you know, should see something else.
I think in general, a lot of people believe that there's something disempowering about women taking their clothes off in horror films. And I think that's usually because we mostly just see women. We don't really see a lot of men. These storylines are usually about the exploitation of women. They're usually about women being killed by men, and they're usually terrible films, let's just be honest. But personally, I don't think there's actually anything disempowering about being nude in a photograph or on film. As somebody who's done it, and don't get me wrong, like some of the films I've done are just, I mean, they're awful and they're ridiculous, and there's nothing empowering about the films. But what I think makes them ridiculous is not necessarily that I'm nude in them. I think it's the storylines and how badly they're filmed or how little sense they make. I think nudity on film is only disempowering if the person who's doing it doesn't want to do it. If you feel any sense of personal guilt or shame about it, then it does become it's a bad thing, and it will never make you more powerful and make you feel good. But if you don't have a problem with it, it's kind of fun and freeing in a strange way.
It's really tough when you talk about feminism and the scream queen, because traditionally, I suppose a lot of scream queens have, you know, gotten naked. I mean, Ingrid Pitt, I think, did it quite a lot in the Hammer horror films. Yeah, I don't think feminism goes out of the window. I think it's just very hard to try and crowbar those arguments into what is a scream queen. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, you know, the traditions of horror, which may not exist now so much, were that the woman, you know, kind of got her tits out and she got very fleshy, and I still don't quite know how I feel about that. I think with the old horrors, there's a sense of fun and nostalgia about it, but I think we're just at that place now whereby it's kind of not cool to just do that. You know, we want to see a little bit of equality in terms of showing flesh. I don't necessarily have a problem with it, really, as long as there's balance.
Quite honestly, I think there should be equal time. You know, spread the joy around. You know, what's wrong with a little nudity?
Few male asses in return for some tits.
You have to understand one thing. A sex symbol is not a sex object. There's a big difference. I've never been a sex object. A sex object is someone who subjects themselves to being raped or being abused or being used or whatever. But I've always been very, very happy to have the title of being a sex symbol, because Marilyn Monroe was a sex symbol. And I think it's something very beautiful. I know I had a lot of women when I did Playboy, for instance. I had women like Gloria Steinem who said, "Sybil, you play strong roles and you play these heroines. How can you do, you know, nude pictures for Playboy?" And I said, "Excuse me, being a sex symbol, being a strong female character is also about making choices. And choices women have over their bodies is exactly that, their choice. And that means they can be nude if they want to be nude, and if they choose to be that, then that's wonderful. And that's why I chose to do Playboy. It's all a part of being a sex symbol.
I think, yes, it is possible to be a feminist and a sex symbol, because I'm a feminist and I was, or whatever, was the sex symbol type thing, and did posters and that. I think they go together. It's some people get, you know, the feminists get all riled up that, you know, you've done some nudity or something in a film, but I think it just goes hand in hand when you're doing a film like I've done.
Yeah, it feels good. I like it. I mean, I can't tell you how many men I've met who go, oh man, I had your poster up in my bedroom, and I go, oh, I don't even think about that. But I think it was me and Farrah Fawcett, you know, you either went like the blonde swimsuit model or you went the dark, sexy thing, and I think it's kind of a deciding factor in how you grew up, you know. I always know that, I mean, I have a huge gay following, and the guys are divided among, there's the guys who you know, wanted to do me, and the guys who wanted to be me. And that was a deciding factor. That's how you decided if you were gay when you were 13, you know? If you liked me for that reason, you were straight. If you liked me for that reason, you were gay. So a lot of people decided their sexuality based upon me. Thank you very much.
Looking for something?
So you think the stereotype of a scream queen is a bimbo or an airhead? Oh gee, where's my top? Where did my top go? I don't know. Oh, well, my boobs are still there. Bullshit.
Alice was a wallflower girl to the hilt, right? And it's funny because when I was not allowed to, they wouldn't even see me to audition because my headshot, I'm Miss Cheerleader. Blonde, makeup, mascara, up the hilt, you know, the whole thing. That was what I was projecting and was going around, you know, when I was a young actress. And so I did not look anything like this part of Alice, you know. Well, they'd gone through all the actresses in town and they went through their throwaway pile, which, hello, I was in. And I finally got my opportunity, and of course I went in, no makeup, dirty hair, wore my worst color, which is pale yellow, just by the way, so no one ever buy me pale yellow, I will never wear it. And acted. Gee, I had training, you know, and followed into the role. So then, as Alice found herself and her power and her beauty, yeah, I got to, you know, reveal, you know, and went from the greasy red hair to 5 where I'm blondish, you know.
With Elvira, with all the boobs and the hair and all the sexy accoutrement, but then she's like not really a bimbo, even though she's not the smartest, you know, sharpest stick in the shed or whatever. I think that I mean, I like to think anyway, that I really took that kind of a character and turned her into kind of a tough, I don't take any crap from anyone kind of female. I like to take credit for that anyway. I had control about what the character did and what she didn't do and would do, and I really wanted to make a female character in a horror movie that was the you know, the hero. And didn't get saved by a man, you know, or didn't get killed off, you know, in the first couple of scenes. So that was really a goal of mine. And in everything I've done since then, and in my second movie, I always kept it that Elvira's pretty horny. She's always looking for a guy, but he never, like, comes along and saves her in the end. She always saves herself, as befuddled as she might be.
Well, back in the day, the term scream queen meant that you were a hot babe in a horror movie. You were going to have sex or take a shower, get naked, and then you were going to do something really stupid and run into whatever the monster, ghost, or peril of the movie was, and die a very violent, horrible death. I made a living doubling these beautiful girls in their underwear, you know, getting hurt. The problem is that there was no place to put protective padding, you know, so I would often get really banged up. But I made a living as a stunt double for women in horror movies, because they always needed stunt doubles, and you burn through the women getting murdered right and left. So I'm grateful that I was able to pay the bills, but it was disturbing how much of the time I was doubling women being horribly brutalized and in peril and hurt and murdered, or whatever it was. It's kind of depressing. So it's been really exciting to see that shift. And now I'm you know, if I get the chance to double somebody, I'm doubling somebody kicking ass. That's a lot more fun.
You know, without giving away the ending to Splatter University, the heroine dies. What splatter movie the girl doesn't even live? Now, it gets into an interesting question about misogynistic behavior from men. And now we go look at the director off screen. The producer off screen. Is he misogynistic? I don't know. You know, it's funny, one of the things that you learn as a woman is you get put up on a pedestal and you also get shot down. And we seem to love these movies. You know, why do people watch horror movies? We like to live out our voyeurism. We like to see, you know, young girls getting killed. And even though I was a feminist, I still enjoyed it.
I understand that they say misogynist on some level, because yes, it's always a young girl in tight clothing, or we're always wet, and the victims are always killed in a hideous way. You know, they're having sex first or something. So yes, it's misogynist. But they were not gracious when they killed the men either. Well, you know, let's face it. So. But that's what people want to see. They want to see young girls naked, getting killed or maimed or something, you know. So.
When violence in a horror film is bad and distasteful, it's because the film is bad and distasteful. And when it's disempowering to women, it's because the characters are written badly. And when you have female characters that are written poorly, you also have male characters that are written poorly. And it's just a poor film. If you have a film that's about rape or about violence, you have to show rape and you have to show violence and you have to show death. And if you've written a good film with good characters and a good storyline, then you've made a good film. And I think that that's what it comes down to, that you can't make a film bad. It's not going to be bad just because you've decided to show violence in a certain way. If it's a good film and Linnea gets pinned naked up on a pair of reindeer antlers, well, you know, fine. I think it's still a good film. Just because I saw a nude girl get killed doesn't mean that it's a sexist, horrible film that should be thrown in the trash.
There are women now producing and directing. Women are now dictating the roles, and the roles for women are becoming stronger as women are writing, producing, and directing them, like Danielle Harris. And I'm very happy that she did that. I was at her premiere, and I wish her much luck.
Is being a Scream Queen empowering? I say it is. You have far more opportunities to do amazing characters in the horror genre as a Scream Queen. I think it's highly empowering.
I always tend to move towards the strong characters, the girls that get to kill people or get to do something fun or with lots of action or stabbings or something. Because I'm strong in general, so I don't think I would be cast as like, you know, the hot, stupid girl like this, because it's just not who I am naturally. I'm more like, you know, oh, I'm gonna kill you, you know. So I think they usually hire the sweet blondes to play those parts. So I usually tend to, and those are the roles I want to play. The strong characters that get to do something cool, torture somebody, or, you know, do something wild.
And I love playing villain. Like, who doesn't? It's awesome. You know, who doesn't want to kill somebody? It's like therapy.
Don't let her get away, Mommy. Don't let her live. I won't, Jason. I won't.
I always preferred the aggressor because I think that's my alter ego. It's something I never really get to do, and I always loved it when I would get cast with a very good-looking young man because I could really scare the hell out of him, you know? And I'm sorry to say, but I did get my kicks doing that. It was a lot of fun when there would be a new boy in town, so to speak, and they'd bring him on set. Michelle, would you mind? No, bring him on. Let's go. I'd love to. It was always a thrill for me. I actually got a lot of fun out of that. And as far as being the victim, I think that was harder for me. It was always a harder role for me to play. I couldn't connect to it much, but the aggressor came very naturally, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Jason? I think the most empowering roles I've done are Trash and Return of the Living Dead, where the girl loved death and got her wish and played a powerful punk rocker. I think Spider and Sorority Babes in the Seinball Bolorama was a powerful character. She beat everyone's ass and, you know, came up against the demons in the bowling alley. In the horror workout, I'm a very strong character because I make the zombies work out because they're out of shape. And there's a dozen of them I could name that are strong characters, but those are the ones that come foremost to my mind.
I think it is a big challenge for a female in horror or action films to come across strong, because she has to keep audience guessing. She has to hold the audience by the balls. Don't mind me saying that. And you know, that's the case. You have to do your work and you have to come across intriguing, strong, and engaging.
Just before the Hostel audition came along, I saw Audition itself, and I found that quite empowering. You know, is this girl who subverts your expectations. She's all demure, docile, and then there she is, being really strong, inflicting pain. Probably that's not a very apt description of it, but I find that it's a strong character.
I don't remember the last time I was in a movie where I screamed, "Help me, oh my God, somebody help me." I just don't want to say it anymore because I watch those girls and I'm like, shut up. You know, he's gonna find you if you're screaming, "Help me, somebody help me." You're drawing attention to yourself. So I think that being a fan of these movies and doing as many as I have, I'm able to kind of go, okay, that works, I buy that, I don't buy that. And just really, and I think also starting off in the genre as a little girl and then continuing to do these movies, I think that a lot of the fans, who are my age, were invested in this little girl. So I became the little sister or the daughter or, you know, the best friend or something. So they've sort of traveled this journey with me a little bit, and they're emotionally invested in me as a person. So then continue to throw me into these situations where I'm in trouble and you're from the first frame, you care about me. regardless of what my character's name is or what's happening, I think that there's already that investment. Then I do Hatchet 2, which is I finally get to be the lead in something and I get to kick ass. And that, you know, this comedic element, this throwback to the movies that started my career. I mean, like, that's why I'm doing what I do, is because of the 80s movies that I grew up loving and wanting to be a part of, and still love to watch more than anything else.
Women are a little bit more vulnerable, and therefore, just as a code in film generally, you're going to empathise more with a female, and by that measure, you're also going to feel that triumph even more. If a woman overcomes, you know, the monster, the beast, and she comes out strong in the end, of course that kind of arc, that character arc, is a lot more dramatic if it's a woman. I just think you feel for them more. And we're more interesting than men. Sorry, but we are, you know. There's a million reasons why, you know, people like Hitchcock were obsessed with the icy blonde. You know, there's a reason for that. Men are fascinated with us and about the power that we have. And, you know, again, you could talk about castration theory and castration anxiety forever on this one, but ultimately, we will overpower men.
Do I feel that my role of Alice represented female empowerment in film? Definitely. She was the ultimate survivor, and she had to really find that strength within her that perhaps she'd never found or used or even realized she had. You know, I truly say to all my my fans, my campers as I call them, when I meet them at conventions, that we're all survivors and everyone's been through something, and it's a matter of how we deal with that and find that inner strength that exists in all of us. It's just a matter of getting down to it when we need it and persevering.
Even though she's goofy and wacky, she gets herself into the messes, but she gets herself out of the messes on her own. And guys try to help her, but they can't quite do it. So I have tons of female fans, girls and women, who love the character because of that. They always say, growing up, I just love the fact that you didn't take any crap from guys, and you know, you kind of kick ass, and you became my idol because of that, which is so bizarre, but I'm really happy if one thing comes out of the Elvira character that translates to my audience. I love that it's that.
Fans that are crazier than the characters you may play in the movies. They exist. They're not made up, not fantasy. My personal experience with crazy fans has gone from anything like somebody asking me to sign their pizza and then them eating it because they wanted me to be a part of them, to when I had my brain surgery and I had a tumor removed, and there was a number of fans that wanted to buy the tumor. At one point, I considered it because I thought it was so crazy. It was so insane that maybe I need to do this because I don't think anybody has done this before. Sadly, they biopsy it, so I never got to do it. But yeah, so there was people that wanted to buy a brain tumor. So if that isn't personal, I don't know what is.
One guy really liked the length of my tongue, and I don't even know how he knew how long it was, but he knew. I think I had a picture or something where I'm all like, I don't know, but yeah, I've gotten some weirdos. I had stalkers, and this dude found out my social security number, my home address, like, he looked like Gacy. It was not cool. So yes, there are the appeal of, you know, a crazy chick or a chick who's being slaughtered. Like, the people that flock towards that sort of material tend to be a little insane.
How would I describe the typical Scream Queen fans? Well, they're an eclectic group, very eclectic group. I'm forever shocked at the loyalty and the interest in us as people, in the character and the films, all of the films. For me personally, I have, because of Part 5, I didn't know this until I went out in the public, but there's a kind of backlash against Part 5. People were not happy. The purists were not happy that it wasn't Jason, which is all new to me. And they kind of resent me. So they, some actually hold me personally responsible that Jason wasn't in the movie. Now, and the flip side of that is then I'll get the fans on the other side who just adored Part 5 and thought it was different, and they took a chance, which I think. It may not have worked out, depending on your point of view, but I have to say, for Part 5, they took a chance. They went on the limb and tried something different, and for that I'm proud. I think it was a good idea.
When I started out in the 1980s, the movies were aimed at college-age males. But those fans have followed me throughout my career, and 30 years later I have pretty much the same fan base, and at conventions I get young men come up to me and say, "Oh, you were my father's favorite and now you're mine." So I've conquered 2 generations of fans. I especially like horror fans because they're incredibly loyal and devoted. I've never seen any other group of fandom like horror aficionados. It's just amazing to me. They're so present for you. You know, they write you letters over the internet, they buy things, they watch your movies, and once you have a horror fan, you've got a fan for life.
The fan base. If it weren't for them, where would we be? Just the crazy people out there that loved it so much and loved what we were doing, and we were having so much fun and working real hard. And why they liked it, I don't know. But I was so glad to be a part of it. And even now, it surprises me, the people that just love it so much. I'm just thankful.
I would say the greatest achievement, honestly, is my fans. And feeling the joy and the love of meaning so much to so many people. It sounds sappy, but it warms my heart.
So what happens when your days as a Scream Queen are over? Well, there's many things that you can do. But the most important thing is you need to have a plan. I've directed a movie. I do an awful lot of writing. I also still act, but I really don't do nude scenes anymore. So Stanley in Oklahoma, stop asking me.
I'm busier than I've ever been in my life. I've always painted. I have my degree in fine arts, and my art became very rich and dark after I had a little stalker interlude in the 80s after the film came out. But that's all behind me, and my art has just my paintings are collected by true art collectors, and I'm just beside myself with that because it's almost like a full circle, my art and my acting coming into one.
I am in the planning stage now with my writing producing partner, J. Michael Straczynski, for something called Living Dead the Musical. And I hope to be able to portray, my plan is, what I want to do, is to be able to be a badass middle-aged lady, now that I'm not a badass hot chick. I want to see if I can't make that happen. I mean, look at what Sigourney's doing. She's managed to do it, so she's my role model.
As of right now, I'm doing very well with comedy. I would certainly like to be in more action films and dramas. So for me, this is the biggest challenge, to make this crossover.
I've really loved to embrace and love horror films and appreciate them and seeing the art of it by being in this.
It's hard to believe that Splatter University was 30 years ago. So fast forward, I turned 50, and I have to tell you, if you told me that I'd look like this at 50, I wouldn't have believed you. I have two 7-year-old babies, and I'm touring all around the world with my fitness product. And this is what it is. It's actually called a spin gym. And if you want to look toned and sexy, I know that sounds crazy. I pitch a lot of products, and I pitch my Jack LaLanne juicer. You've seen that, I'm sure, and Montel Williams Health Master. But not many products can you carry in your purse like that. And so I think the legacy of who Forbes Riley is started out as a scream queen, and hopefully I'll be remembered as someone who changes people's lives, inspires them, and really lets them live their dream. Whether you get to be an actress, get to be a fit mom, just get to live whatever the dream is. That's what I'm doing.
Within about a year of arriving in Los Angeles, I was offered a role in Slumber Party Massacre, and I would have been one of the leads, but I had a scheduling conflict with a modeling shoot, so I get killed fairly quickly, but it's a nice, memorable death. And shortly after that, the offers for horror films started pouring in. And I thought, well, this is just a lark. I'm going to do it for a little while, and then I'll move up the ladder and I'll become an A-list actress. But that never happened. The more horror films that I did, the more that I was pigeonholed. And agents didn't take me seriously. They're like, oh, well, everything that's on your resume is B movies, so that's all you can do. You must not be a very good actress. So there was definitely some typecasting going on. And after a certain point, like by the mid-'80s, I realized I wasn't going to break into the mainstream. But an interesting thing happened where I became a big fish in a small pond. I was crowned the queen of this genre. So, you know, if you gotta be known for something, it's great to be a cult celebrity. And if I'm, you know, on my deathbed looking back on my life, I'm going to be very pleased with everything that I've accomplished. I won't feel like my life was wasted, that at least I made a name for myself doing something.
Now that I look back on it, it was a huge part of my life and my career. And without that moment in time where we were doing the B movie horror films, it was just the most huge opportunity of a lifetime for anyone to be involved in. And I think it made a very powerful statement in my life and my career, having been involved in that, absolutely.
I don't know what my secret to my longevity in the horror films is, but I guess I was in Your Face and USA Up All Night. A lot of those films, you know, they went from DVD or VHS to Up All Night. I think a lot of people grew up on them. They passed it down to their generations, which is weird to say, but I think it just, the people that are making the films now remember that fondly, and I am working for people that grew up on my films now, so I think that helps with the longevity. And they were fun films. They were just fun films.
Horror movies have definitely empowered me, and it wasn't so much it being a horror movie, it was just me. I was in college and I told myself, man, it'd be so cool to be in a horror movie. And then in 6 months I did 1, and then in, you know, a year I did 10, and then, I mean, I've done 60 in 4 years. So it's just the whole idea that, you know, I said it out loud, I wanted to do it, and I did it. And I did it times 60. And now it's like, yeah, you can do anything. So yeah, it was very empowering. The whole experience has been super empowering. It just taught me that every dream is attainable.
I mean, I've been on movies. I mean, we did Maniacs where people's faces are hanging off and, you know, their boobs are out and they're dead, and you're like, or I'm covered with blood. And I never think like, ooh, gross. I can't believe I'm doing this. It's always been like, yeah, this is cool. Who gets to do this, man? This is cool. I could be doing something boring, but I'm doing something exciting and wicked.
People, they say to me, you know, well, you know, like, what kind of a character did you play, you know, when in these movies back then? And I said, oh, well, in I Drink Your Blood, I played a mute hippie on acid with rabies who cuts off a lady's hand with an electric carving knife. And I always get like a big kick out of that because they just so don't expect, you know, me to say that. In the beginning, I never told anyone about the films I did in the 70s because when I did them, of course, they weren't George Romero and David Cronenberg, you know, and all those great people. But now I can recognize, you know, the worth of each of those films and how much they've done, you know, to create a different type of horror in these generations. And all these new, I get, you know, Facebook emails all the time from, you know, people in their 20s and 30s who are now big fans, you know, of my work, and it's very exciting.
My legacy? Well, I suppose now I've kind of come to terms with it. I'm relatively proud of it because I realize that it's not just strange people that like these films. There's a lot of people within the business who I respect, who are great fans of these films. So these films look like they're going to live on, and I'm quite proud of that. They are known to be quite classic. Well, classy and classic pieces, so that pleases me, yeah. But I would have preferred to leave a different legacy, but you can't always choose, can you?
Today's Scream Queens, I really think like the Scream Queens of now, right now, Tiffany Shepis, Debbie Rochon, these are women who that's all they do. All their films are low budget, all their films are horror, and I can't speak for Debbie, but I do know that Tiffany loves it, and like that's what she wants to do. I'm sure if you offered her like, you know, $5 million to be in a mainstream comedy, she would take it, but she actually really likes what she's doing, and she's totally fine with it. It's not like some miserable accident that she just couldn't get any other roles, and this is which is what I think happens to a lot of women, is they end up in horror and they actually want to be someplace else. But I think Tiffany and Debbie in particular are going to continue to be cast over and over again, probably for the rest of their careers, as long as they'd like to.
As fun as it'd be to be on a CW show and get to wear, you know, Gucci every day and go to New York and make $70,000 an episode or whatever ridiculous amount of money they make, I kind of wouldn't trade my $100 a day covered in blood, getting to kick some ass, working with my friends for anything in the world. I really wouldn't. I can't really imagine my life any other way. Except when I have kids, I don't know what the hell I'm going to show them because they're not going to watch any of these movies, not until they get older. But you know, even having them be like, wow, you know, mommy was the heroine. Mommy's strong. Like, you know, they got to see me sort of overcome these challenges, and being the one left standing at the end. I think that's pretty cool, actually. I laugh every time after I'm done with a scene and I get to go to my trailer and I'm freezing cold and I'm covered in blood, and I look in the mirror as I'm covering myself in shaving cream because that's really all that gets the blood off, like laughing, going, this is literally a day at the office for me. That's so crazy. I had no idea that I would have this life. So I think that maybe that's why I've sort of been given the title, because I really do enjoy what I do, and that's what makes good Scream Queens, ones that really want to be there.
So, you've heard from the Scream Queens, you've heard from me, and I really want to thank you. I'm honored to be in this documentary, and I'm honored to be alongside such horror icons that we've featured here for you. And if you go away with nothing else, I hope you go away thinking twice about the definition of Scream Queen. Not just a pair of breasts, and not just a scream, but a tough lady that can make it in this business and kick some serious ass.